the ability for you to adapt to an ever-changing environment is perhaps the highest predictor of that success. You have to have adaptation with your grit and with your plan. Don't confuse grit with consistency. You can be gritty, you can get in and do the work, but unless you do it in a consistent manner and on a consistent basis, your grit may go unnoticed, and it may not have the impact that you want to see.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Execution Exchange. I'm your host, Jake Allen. It's been a couple weeks since our last episode, so I wanted to start with a quick update on what's been happening around here. As you probably know, our company, Mission Driven Leadership, works with organizations to identify and develop leaders who can truly execute. Recently, most of that work is centered around helping HR, executive search teams design better ways to evaluate candidates, including interview questions and case studies that quantify what we call bias for action among late-stage executive candidates. In short, we've been helping companies figure out which candidates are hardwired to generate momentum and drive execution. It's been some of the most rewarding work we've done. That work has now evolved into something really cool and exciting, a new product we developed called the Momentum Factor Assessment. To my knowledge, it's the first and only assessment designed to measure a leader's bias for action. Now, unlike personality tests that explore how people feel or think, Momentum Factor is a cognitive assessment, meaning it measures what people will actually do, how they behave when pressure and ambiguity collide. There's a lot of science behind it, and we'll dive into some of that in a future episode. But for now, just know that my business partner, Philip Dwyer, and I have been heads down bringing this thing to life over the last couple of weeks. As any practitioner of execution knows, focus requires what we call ruthless prioritization. So I've had to put some of the execution exchange stuff aside in favor of working on Momentum Factor. So that's why I'm really excited to announce that on November the 1st, we're officially launching season 1 of the Global Leadership Challenge, or what we call the GLC. The GLC is kind of a mini version of the Momentum Factor assessment. It only takes about 10 minutes, but during that time, you're going to face 6 real-world business scenarios that test your instincts for taking action. You'll walk away with a bias for action score and a momentum profile, which is what reveals how you lead when it matters the most. It's free to take, and we'll even be giving away $1,000 to one lucky participant. And you can even generate a $250 donation for a charity of your choice if you win your division. You can find a link in the show notes if you're interested in that. Okay, so now let me get to today's guest, who I happened to meet quite randomly at an airport a couple of months ago. But as you're about to hear, he has a fascinating and compelling story to tell. Dr. Daniel Gilham is the managing director of advisor strategy at a company called Farther. Farther is the fastest growing financial services company in America, according to the 2025 Inc. 5000. Farther is transforming the wealth management industry by combining cutting-edge technology with real human experience and expertise. With nearly 2 decades in that industry, Daniel has guided business owners, institutions, and high net worth families, helping them turn complex financial goals into clear, actionable strategies. He's a certified financial planner, a certified exit planning advisor, and a 40 under 40 honoree whose insights have been featured in Bloomberg, USA Today, and the Wall Street Journal. When he's not leading strategy or speaking on leadership and finance, you'll find him at Atlantic Beach, Florida, adventuring with his wife and 2 kids, or climbing something tall just for fun. So without further delay, Dr. Daniel Gilham.
Dr. Daniel Gilham, welcome to Execution Exchange.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I know this has been it's been good. I know you had this on the books for a few weeks, and you've been going through a little bit of a chest cold. So I appreciate you soldiering up and making it happen.
No, I've been looking forward to this since we met each other in an airport in Dallas, Texas. So
yeah. That's awesome. Okay, as I often do, I'll ask our guests kind of just tell us, before we get into your professional history, just tell us what kind of kid you were. Where'd you grow up? What are some of your memories of childhood?
Yeah. So I grew up in a military family. So my father was enlisted Navy, and they were from Chicago, So I always say that I had an older brother and sister that was born in Chicago, an older sister that was born in Italy. I was born in Texas. My younger sister was born in Lemoore, California. And if you are in the military, you could probably piece out all of those Navy bases across the world.
Right.
But had the opportunity to grow up in Memphis. My father was stationed at NAS Millington for quite some time.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Memphis isn't a place I necessarily associate with a Navy base, but I know there was an air station there. So that's cool. Right. I mean, what were your memories of move? I also was a military brat. My dad was in the Marine Corps and then later in the Navy. So we moved around a lot too, but it was more North and South Carolina, Virginia, Florida, places like that. So yeah, I mean, I definitely picked up and moved every 3 years.
Yeah, I think my parents took a little different perspective around this. We settled in
Okay.
Memphis, and so we moved there. I was 6. My father then got stationed to Jacksonville, Florida, for about 8 months. We stayed in Memphis. He did some stints in California, and the longest duty that he had was actually in Iceland. And my
Interesting.
mom was like, "We're not taking the family to Iceland for 3 years." So we stayed behind, and my dad was traveling, and so wasn't too
Okay.
impactful through my formative years, I
Yeah.
guess you would say, through schooling and all of that.
That's good.
But
Yeah, that's probably the better approach. If your family can do it that way, it's probably better for all the kids. I know I personally, I had a younger brother, and he used to kind of complain that he didn't like picking up and moving all the time. I actually kind of found it kind of interesting. I mean, just kind of being a new kid at school and going to new places and trying new things. So it's all, it's all just kind of how you look at it, I guess. Could be good, could be a negative.
yeah, I do think it is, whether it's positive or negative, I think it does generate something inside of you for
Hmm.
exploration. And the only reason I say that is my first career, I came up at AOL. I was a systems engineer turned into a trainer and a manager and a product manager. And I had the opportunity to travel all over the world with AOL.
Right.
So I lived in India for 6 months, and
Wow.
Argentina, Israel. So as I'm traveling all over the world, I'll never forget calling my father from South Africa, and I was like, "Hey, Dad, I just got to Joburg, South Africa," and he starts laughing. He's like, "Man, you've seen more places than I have." And as we were talking through that, I was like, "Yeah, my business class flight in my casino marble encrusted hotel is probably
Yeah,
a little different than aircraft
it's a different
carrier."
class of travel, and yeah, being on a ship, that's for sure. All right, good. So you're and our listeners know if they'd read the bio that you're currently you're a managing director with Farther, and Farther is a fascinating company. I mean, hopefully you can kind of spend a few minutes just kind of sharing the really remarkable growth. When you guys are the fastest growing fintech company in 2025, I mean, can you maybe kind of describe the business a little bit and your role in it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the impetus of Farther really comes out of many of our early teams. So I was employee number 8 here at Farther. We all came from large financial services companies. So whether it's Goldman or JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Merrill Lynch, all of those big names, right? Where we were building businesses around wealth management. And at the end of the day, you just get to a point where you reach some frustration, right? Lack of innovation, lack of technology, this fiduciary responsibility that we are supposed to take on as advisors. How do you execute that in those types of environments? These older, more antiquated firms are just bolted on businesses and technology that makes it really, really tough to turn the ship, right? Because you never know what the downstream ramifications are going to be when you modify code that was written in 1974 in Fortran, right?
Cobol, Fortran,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So the idea here is how do you create the next great financial institution from the ground up using modern technology so that we can pivot, that we can implement in a very quick turnaround period of time. So that's where Farther started in building the technology, the infrastructure, And then we started layering in assets and financial advisors and building the organization. So at the end of the day, if we just look at some of the statistics in the market, average advisors spend roughly 60% of their time on non-client facing activities. And clients are hiring their advisors to spend time with them to truly understand their situation and give them more customized, specific advice to their situation. So our goal was, how do we reduce the amount of time that advisors are spending on all of those non-client facing activities? So our advisors spend roughly 10% of their time on non-client facing activities.
Wow.
So we're drastically reducing the amount of work that's happening in the background.
Could you maybe just give a couple of examples of, I mean, what are some of these kind of non-value, I call them non-value add, you call them non-client facing, but I mean, can you give a couple of examples of how advisors get kind of drawn into that vortex and where they're typically are wasting a lot of time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the easiest examples is to talk about some of the large language models that we've created. So advisors spend quite a bit of time taking statements. So Jake's coming on board. He sends me his investment statement. So I'm going to take all those individual positions and tax lots from 5 different statements at 3 different firms,
Mm.
and I have to input those into a proposal type of tool. Well, one of the large language models that we've created is we just upload the statements into our app, and we are extracting all of that data out. It takes 3 to 5 minutes, and I can very easily compare and contrast a portfolio with where you are today versus what a recommendation might be.
Wow.
Money movement, rebalancing. We have automated rebalancing that looks as frequently as daily. Automating the tax location features. So how you own assets is just as important as which assets you own. So taking a lot of that lift off of the advisor's plate or the advisor support team,
Yeah.
because a lot of advisors that I talk to are like, I don't do that anyways. I have a
Right.
team. Well, guess
Someone's
what?
got to
That's
do it.
cutting into yeah. So it's cutting into your
Mhm.
margins, right? So what we're seeing is that our advisors grow twice as fast as advisors at other firms, and our margins, as you can imagine, are much better
Yeah.
than most
Mhm.
financial services firms.
So the business is growing both through some acquisition, right? I mean, you're acquiring some, um, I mean, obviously you're acquiring customers organically, but you're also buying up smaller advisory firms as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. When you look across the landscape, a lot of registered investment advisory firms are going out and acquiring other practices. So they're writing a check, bringing in those other firms. As of now, that's not a process that we have engaged in. We're finding advisors that are frustrated with their current environment. They want to grow, but they can't. They need more support. They need a modern wealth platform, and we're inviting them into our ecosystem to be a part
Mm.
of Farther. So that's not to say that we wouldn't look at acquiring firms,
It's
but
not the growth
up until
strategy
now,
per se. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
up until now, it's more of recruiting advisors that really believe in what the future of financial services look like, and providing them with the resources to grow.
Whenever hiring, we work a lot with clients to kind of help them find leaders who have what we call a high bias for action. I mean, they basically are, they're kind of predisposed. They're instinctually executors, and that can be a little bit hard to pinpoint, sometimes. And so that's kind of the role that we play, is to help them find leader, in a situation where everybody's basically equally qualified, right? They've all got the MBA, they've all got the 5 years of experience, they all live in the Houston area. I mean, they're just kind of going, the references all check out. I mean, everybody kind of looks the same. But which of these applicants or candidates is really kind of wired for execution? And so that's kind of a little, slice that we support hiring teams in HR with. And I'm interested, when you say you're hiring, how do you know that an advisor is, I mean, apart from maybe the size of their portfolio that they're managing, that's probably the initial indicator. But what are some of the ways in which you guys would assess an advisor's bias for action, so to speak, to use my term?
Yeah, that great question, and I love that term. I think it's a few things. So if you'll allow me, just kind of think through this with you. We have a very well-defined system and process by which we engage with advisors, get to understand them, their business, their practice, and their future plans. right? Because what we understand is that Farther's not the right fit for everybody, and not everybody's the right fit for Farther, right? So by us getting to know them, understanding how they built their business, to your point, the size of the business is
Sure.
a pretty good indicator in their ability to go out and execute. But I'll tell you, Jake, one of the things that I found and that I love so much about interacting with these advisors throughout the country is we do discovery days in our centralized office in Dallas, Texas. So we'll bring in 8 to 20 advisors, and we'll just share the story. We get to know them, get to meet them in person, break bread, have a drink, and after those events, it's amazing to see the advisors that have just been good. They're fine. They built a great business. They make a great income. They're like, I could grow. I could not. I could play more golf. I could spend more time fishing. Whatever it
Right.
might be. This is completely age agnostic, right? There are some people that are 40. They're like, yeah, I'm making $1 million a year. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't really care to grow. And then there's some that might be in their 60s that are saying the same thing. But after we get to tell our story and they get to see the impact that we're making and the growth of the advisors and the support that they're going to get here at Farther, many times we're walking away from those events and I get text messages and phone calls and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this has rejuvenated me. I'm ready to grow again.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Pick up the phone.
I'm so excited to partner." Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's quantitative and qualitative
Yeah.
measures to look at how we identify whether that execution is there with a hire.
Because I can, not knowing that much about how that works. I mean, my mind starts thinking. Apart from looking at the size of the assets under management, the portfolio they're helping manage, which is obviously critical, but it doesn't tell a full story, right? I mean, it could be from a handful of clients with large portfolios. They may have had those clients they may only be adding 1 or 2 clients per year. It's a big portfolio at first glance, right? I mean, I don't even know what a big number would be. Let's say there's $50 million or whatever, but it's all coming from a small group of people. And he won those accounts like 12 years ago. That's different than somebody who's much smaller. Maybe they only got a $20 million, assets under management, but they're adding new customers, every 3 months they're adding new customers. I mean, it's apples to oranges comparison. Yes, one's smaller, but one's much more active.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about Farther is we've created the platform, the ecosystem to allow advisors to thrive in whichever market they're in. If they want to focus on Henrys, right, high earners, not rich yet, and they want to help develop a plan and get them to that wealthy, quote unquote, wealthy status, then that's great. If you want to work with family office type of clients that have $100 million or more, that's fine as well. So we're helping facilitate that for these advisors. So when we think about measuring what that success looks like, you're right. It's not just about the size of the business. It's how they've built it, how they're treating their clients, how they approach a comprehensive wealth management environment, right? There's a lot of people that just do investments or just do insurance or whatever it might be. So we're looking for those truly consultative advisors that can get in the weeds with the families and help them plan out what that future looks like. I'll throw in one other story that resonates. When I moved from Washington, D.C. down here to Florida, I knew I wanted to move into wealth management. My time at AOL, I had early experience in dealing with stock options and trading and all of that. It became a hobby of mine. I travel with our McKinsey and Bain consultants around the world, and they would ask me, right, "Hey, AOL's employee stock option program is up today. Are you going to keep the stock? Or are you gonna sell it? What's going to go?" So the joke was that I became the financial advisor of our little project team. So inevitably, I end up in the role. And when I was transitioning, I'll never forget this man. I'm a big fan of mentors and having people in your life that you can seek counsel from and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the gentleman who hired me in my first role as an advisor at Merrill Lynch, his name is Tom Isaacs. I still talk to him to this day. He said, "Daniel, people like you don't make it in this business." He said, "You don't come from money, you didn't marry into money, and you're new to town." And that was very insightful for me, to your point, is understanding what does that business look like? How was it developed? And then what is the propensity to have growth in the future?
Yeah. So, you didn't find that to necessarily be true, did you? Or were there some truths to that?
There is an immense amount of truth to
Okay.
that. So the success rate of new advisors coming into the financial services business is 3%.
Oh, wow. That's
So it is a 97% fail rate for new advisors trying to get into the
Mm.
industry. So that is a battle that we need to fight. If we look over the next 10 years, 38% of the 275,000 financial advisors that are out there are scheduled to retire. The average age is just over 60. So we have a supply demand imbalance right
Mhm.
now in our industry. We actually have a large reduction in the supply of advice while we have this immense generational transition of wealth. Different numbers. I have 68 trillion in my research. I've seen as high as 84. But there's this large generational transition of wealth and 9 million baby boomers that are selling their business at the same time when nearly 40% of the industry are retiring out. So we really need to tackle the onboarding, the next gen of financial
Yeah.
advisors moving into our industry.
I mean, maybe this is an analogy that you got. I mean, when I look at farther, kind of from the outside looking at it, I'm not a client, I don't really know anybody who is, but the way you describe it and the way it presents itself to the world, I mean, it seems like it's a very interesting story that you have to tell to advisors. I mean, as you said, it's built from the ground up around the technology, and so that automatically makes it, first of all, interesting story to tell, but also potentially, disruptive to the market where you do have these the pillars of Wall Street that have been around forever, and basically the old blue blood, blue chip. You seem like an outsider kind of coming in. You seem like an upstart. You seem like the Robin Hood of the market. Is that a fair characterization, or am I misjudging it?
I think you nailed it. And, we are venture backed. So I think some of the top minds in the venture market see it that way as well. Right. So, Bessemer Venture Partners led our Series A back in 22. Lightspeed Ventures led our Series B in 23. And then last year, Capital G, which is Google's venture arm, led our Series C. So, what we know is that we are making some waves in the industry, and it is our goal to disrupt the normalcy around how clients and advisors engage with each other to provide that digital family office experience.
Interesting. You mentioned research too. I wanted to talk to you about your doctorate, doctor. Maybe you can kind of share with us. I'd read a little nugget that I thought was pretty intriguing. I mean, you were focused on inhibitors and motivations for planning. Can you maybe kind of unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was at Wells Fargo at the time when I began my research, and I initially set out to research how technology could augment the client advisor relationship to create efficiencies. See a common theme here. So as I get into my research and as I meet my dissertation committee, they're like, "Oh, that's all great, but we need to get deeper, need to get deeper, narrow, 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 right?" As I continued my literature review and the research process, I really stumbled upon this idea that we should be using technology to overcome the inhibitors to adoption of comprehensive planning. And relevant for your audience and your clients, I specifically focused on business owners. What I found through research is that only 19% of financial advisors are actually implementing comprehensive plans for their clients, even though 100% of advisors say that they
Right.
offer it, right?
Sure.
Only 19% are doing it.
Well, can I just ask how do you accumulate that kind of research? I mean, is it through just field sampling, or is that just kind of stuff published somewhere, or is it a mixture of all that, or how do you kind of get to those numbers?
Yeah, it is a mixture. So I initially set out doing literature reviews. So you go out and you look at other research that was done in relevant to the field and research topic that you're involved in. I used a research methodology called design science research, which is an iterative process, which is extremely beneficial and applicable to the business world. So we always call it the practitioner scholar type of program.
Hmm.
So we take our literature review, we build a foundational concept, and then we go out into the market and test it. So after the initial stage of research, I took that out and did one-on-one interviews with financial advisors and with business owners. So I had both sides of the segment to interview.
Perfect.
So
Yep.
captured all of those transcripts. You take all of those transcripts, you codify them, come up with common themes, and then go back to your initial um, model, your conceptual model, and then you modify it, you tweak it, and then you go back out and test it again. So then I went out and did focus groups. So I did a focus groups with business owners, focus groups
Man, you must have
with
wanted this pretty bad.
financial advisors.
I can,
Oh, it was
I
oh, it
can
was a ton of
appreciate the
fun.
grind. I can appreciate the discipline. That's good.
It was a ton of fun, and I can't wait to get on to another research project soon. But so basically, we take all that information, we codify that, and we find these themes. And the three themes that we found in research were time, cognition, and risk. So why are business owners not engaged in comprehensive planning? And why are financial advisors not engaging their clients in comprehensive planning? So it was time.
Mhm.
Think about it from a business owner perspective and from a financial advisor.
Well,
We
that's
already
what I'm
know that they're
paying the
spending.
advisor to do, right? I mean, like, I'm the business owner, man. I'm running my business. That's what I'm paying you to do. If you're not, if only 80% of you guys aren't doing it, then that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, think about it from what we just talked about, like the antiquated technology,
Mhm.
how much time it takes to actually deliver that advice. So time is a big one. Obviously, the business owners head down trying to focus on the business and growing that. Cognition is a big one, right? So not all financial advisors know how to interact with business owners and consult around the complexities of owning a business. 82% of business owners say that their business is the largest asset. It's concentrated, it's illiquid. So there's not a lot of financial advisors that know how to consult around that. And then from a business owner perspective, it's really hard to get the mind wrapped around how all of these variables work together and what a captive insurance strategy is and how it fits with your taxes and your investment strategy, your trust,
Right.
all of that, right? So those were the two big themes of the three that really made an impact. So that's where technology can come in, and that's what we're doing here at Farther is how do we lean into technology and people to overcome those inhibitors to adoption of
I
comprehensive
mean,
planning?
this sounds like such a perfect match for where you're sitting at Wells Fargo and kind of having these kinds of thoughts, and then you end up working at a company that's basically doing that exact. You're the eighth employee in a company that's basically moving in that exact same direction. I mean, is that just completely serendipitous, or was that, I don't know, how did that work out?
So I talked about mentors earlier. I went to a mentor of mine and I was telling him about my research and what I was finding. And I took a couple of ideas back to Wells Fargo and I told him, I was like, hey, look, this is what business owners want. This is what financial advisors are saying. Why are we not moving in this direction?
Because they're a
And
giant elephant that can't pivot like that.
yeah. So I went to a mentor of mine and I was talking to him and just frustration. He was like, "You really need to meet Brad."
Mm,
And Brad's our co-founder and CTO. He had some similar frustrations at Goldman as he was trying to build technology there. And we got together, started talking. I was like, "This is exactly what I'm researching," and he was like, "This is exactly where we're going." And
perfect.
it was perfect.
Yeah,
So
really does
it
sound like a perfect match.
it worked out well.
Very cool. Another thing I wanted to ask you, I'm just circling back to a question I wanted to ask you before. I mean, you also, I probably should have covered this early on. You had a life scare early on. Some years ago. Can you maybe kind of talk us through nearly dying?
Yeah, the reason I bring this up is I feel like this experience is something that we all encounter, maybe not on a daily basis, but we all encounter these types of situations in business. So I'll try to be short with it and put a bow, but basically, my wife and I were driving back from the Panhandle over to the Jacksonville area and started having some really sharp stomach pains. Went to the doctor and told them that I had appendicitis, right? Because that's what we do. We just tell the doctors what's wrong with us. They laughed and said, "No, you don't have appendicitis. You actually have an infection in your stomach." So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, what's going on here?" So got some medicine. 2 days later, I'm back in the hospital in the ER here at Mayo Clinic, and my large intestine had ruptured and I had gone septic.
Mm.
Um, so had to go in, remove about 6 inches of my large intestine, and through that process, had to have a bypass for about 6 months to let my body heal. The surgeons were great. They're like, "Hey, you're young. You'll recover from this. We'll be able to reverse the surgery, and you'll be fine." So after 6 months, go back to the doctor to get put back together, and that's where things started going wrong. When they reconnected my large intestine, it wasn't working properly. They had to go back in, fix the suture, and in doing so, because I had gone septic again because of the stomach issue, I had another bypass, and I was at Mayo Clinic for 2.5 weeks. I'll never forget laying there, not really knowing what's going to happen, not knowing what's next. And for me, maybe not for everybody, but when you're laying on your deathbed, I didn't think about all the things that I did. And maybe that's bad, but I wasn't thinking about all the fun experience that I just alluded to and traveling around the world. Um, I didn't think about, all of the amazing experiences. I was thinking about all the things that I wanted to do and I never did them, and all the excuses that I made.
Mm.
So I'm laying there and I was like, you know what? If I get out of this, I get put back together and I get back to my healthy lifestyle, I am going to climb that mountain and we're going to do it for a good cause. So I grew up with John Krakauer, Into Thin Air, the story
Hell
of the
yeah.
96
Sure.
Everest. So
Yeah.
love the
I love
book.
those books.
And he's from Seattle, so he used Rainier as a training mountain. So while I was at Mayo Clinic, I rounded up a group of guys and I was like, "Look, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to be healthy again. We're going to get a group of guys together. We're going to go climb Mount Rainier, and we're going to raise money for a children's home that we were
Mhm.
starting in Jamaica." So fast forward a year after that time at Mayo, I had 2 more surgeries. We summited Mount Rainier. We took a group of 8. 4 of us made it to the top.
Good.
Um, the other 4 are still with us. They just didn't make it to the
Right.
summit. So summited, and we raised $57,000 to start a
Amazing.
children's home down in Jamaica.
Making it to
So
the top's
yeah,
great,
it was
but making it to the bottom is also good. Yeah.
oh, that's where most of the injuries happen.
Well,
Is actually on the way
I
down.
know.
I think it's lack of you kind of lose some of the adrenaline of
You're right.
the mountaintop.
Yeah, well, that's a fascinating story. There's so much to unpack from that. We could have done a whole episode on that because, I mean, just having that goal, right? I mean, just putting something out there, having a purpose, having your why with raising the money. I mean, it's just like, it just really kind of encapsulates for me everything we try to, harp on around execution is you've got to set the goal. You got to have something really crystal clear that you're working toward. You weren't by yourself. You had pulled some other people. You had a shared vision. I'm sure you had to work up to it and train up to it. Obviously, you were coming out of being, coming off your deathbed, but they weren't. But people still, I mean, you're at a certain age. You got to toughen up your legs. You've got to put in the miles. You got to do all this stuff. I mean, it's just a great little, to me, just like a little vignette around execution, executing towards a specific goal and, and achieving it. That's good on you. I'm glad your health is, no more issues though, right? Everything's
No,
back
no,
to
all
normal.
good. Now I just don't exercise and climb mountains because we're building
Too
something else right
busy.
now. But
Yeah.
there will be another
Yeah.
time for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, that's awesome. Great,
Um,
great story. I wanted to make sure we got that covered as well. Another word that you mentioned in the previous story was iteration. And that's a concept which, we spend a lot of time on working with leaders who we consider that one of our 6 dimensions of a bias for action sort of profile personality. People that are willing to just get started with limited information or limited resources, like, let's just get this thing going and we'll make it better, as we go. Let's just get started. We'll collect some data and we'll make a subsequent, set of decisions based on that, as opposed to kind of being that paralysis by analysis, or well, we can't really start yet, or we don't have enough this or enough that. I mean, people that are kind of inclined to iterate are oftentimes people who achieve their goals. I mean, perhaps you observe the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I use the other nomenclature for this, which is don't let perfection get in the way of
Hmm.
progress, right? And we see that every single day within our business, right? Obviously, being employee number 8, and now we're just over 500 employees in just over 4 years, going
That's
from
amazing.
20 million of assets to 13 billion of assets over that period of time. You can have a plan, but that plan is going to
Right.
change. And I think
Plan on it
there's
changing.
a few. Yes, yes. So there's so much that we can go in through here.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite things to talk about. Dan Ariely wrote a book called Predictably Irrational. And he talks about this fact that we create business plans or economic plans based on the fact that people are going to act rationally. But we know that we're not going to act rationally because things are going to change and we're not going to know what to do. So, what if we could predict when irrational behavior was going to exist? And that can help build some moats around your plan and help guide the plan along the way. It also makes me think about Angela Duckworth and Grit, right? Where it's all about long term goal and perseverance. Um, but she doesn't really hit on adaptability. So I love this evolution of the IQ to EQ to AQ,
Hmm.
right? Back in the day, it was how smart are you? Well, it's your IQ is going to be the highest predictor of your success in the future. And then we grow a little bit, we get into some psychology and we say, oh, you know what? It's not your IQ, but it's more of your
Emotional.
emotional
Right.
intelligence. How do you interact and deal with the different people? And then, over the last probably 10 years, maybe now, there's been a lot of research on the adaptability quotient and the ability for you to adapt to an ever-changing environment is perhaps the highest predictor of that success.
Finish your thought. I
No.
was going to violently agree with you.
Yeah, it's uh, so I love that, and I think that you have to have adaptation with your grit and with your plan.
Hmm.
And somebody recently, I was talking to another a mentor of mine who we were talking about grit, and so frankly, sometimes I wonder. I was like, do I have the grit that I had 10 years ago? Like, am I getting soft in my grittiness here? What's going on? And we were talking about the difference or the similarities between grit and consistency. And he said to me, he was like, Daniel, don't confuse grit with consistency. You can be gritty, you can get in and do the work, but unless you do it in a consistent manner and on a consistent basis, your grit may go unnoticed and it may not have the impact that you want to see. And I thought that was pretty
That is
insightful
insightful.
from him.
And I also, it makes me think that, there are kind of seasons of life where you don't need as much grit if you're either your intelligence has kind of gotten to a point where you don't have to like just grit it out. You don't, everything doesn't have to be white knuckled on the bleeding edge. I mean, you've kind of figured out a little groove. And so there's not as much demand for grit at certain times or in certain endeavors because you basically now know what you're doing. You basically know how to get it, you know how to get the results you want. It doesn't require just completely, gritting it out all the time. So, um,
Yeah, but then you deal with the other side, which I'm sure you've never had to deal with this. But for me, it's how do you give up control?
Right.
So you've been there, you've been in the trenches, you've been building, you've been gritty, and now it's a
yeah.
business, and now it's a running unit within a large
Mhm.
organization, and now it's time to hire somebody who's better at that than you are. That's really,
Yeah,
really
that
tough.
I've never grown a business from, from 10 people to 500 in 4 years. So I no, I don't have that kind of experience. But I mean, I think it's relative for everybody, right? I mean, at any time I've started and grown a couple of different small businesses over the years and even built departments when I worked for other companies. When the transition point that's so difficult is when you actually know you can do it better early on, right? Because you've already done it. I built it. I know how this all stuff works. I could actually do it better than the person I've just hired. Like this week, I could be better at it. But if I just give him or her the chance to kind of struggle with it for 3 or 4 weeks, they'll be as good as I am 6 weeks from now, and then they'll be better than me, 12 weeks from now. But it's that interim period where it's like, oh, I just don't want this done so poorly, right now for the next month. But you have to give them, you have to release it. You have to give them the opportunity to make their own mistakes, figure it out on their own. So it's tough.
Yeah. Well, I think it ties directly back into one of our business units is business services and working with business owners to understand the value of their business. And one of the key drivers is is key man risk, right?
Yep.
If I'm going to buy your business and there's risk at the top that if I come in, buy the business and you leave, that I'm going to
Falls
falter,
apart. Yeah.
right? Then that's a problem. And so we know this intuitively that bringing in experts and people that are better and help scale actually increases the value of the business. But sometimes it could be tough to let go
Personalities.
and
Yeah.
give up that
You're dealing with
control. Yeah.
people, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with personalities, you're dealing with all the baggage that we all have and bring along and our previous experience. People have been burned or they heard about something that went bad for somebody else and they don't want to do it that way. So yeah, change is hard. Change management. And that's like what it all kind of boils down to. Cool. Well, listen, I'm gonna let you go with that. That was awesome. I'd love to continue the conversation. You've been very generous with your time today. We're gonna keep an eye out farther. I know you guys do even bigger and better things, so it's exciting. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having
All
me.
right.